Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're really excited to be joined today by Florian Wagner. He's actually joining us from Berlin, Germany, which is awesome. We're actually been really surprised with the international interest in Openhaus up to this point. You may not know this, Florian, I don't think I mentioned this, but about like 50% of kind of our initial Openhaus Pro beta testers for us have been from outside the US. So it's been really fun to meet people from across the world. Florian's obviously joining us from Berlin. He is from Mesh Images. They do a variety of 3D tour and different 3D services that he's going to tell us about, and then just kind of get into his background, experience with Metaport, his opinions about the Pro 3, what he's excited about in Metaport's future, and we're just really thankful for Florian joining us on his Friday evening over there. Florian, how are you? And feel free to kind of introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Carson. Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you. It's 8 p.m. here, so we have a small time shift. Yeah, my background. Well, I'm 48 years old, so there's quite a lot to tell. I could probably talk 2 hours, but I will try to make this short. I was born and raised in Germany, in Munich, and then studied business administration in Frankfurt, Germany. And then I started my professional career in the end of the year 1999 in the broadcast and media business in one of the largest media groups here in Germany called the Kirch Group. You called it maybe, you pronounced it Kirch Group in the United States. And this was right at the beginning of the rising of the dot-com bubble. All the listeners may remember this. And this media group became famous for having one of the largest film libraries and archives in the world. But it was also active in different fields like TV, sports, entertainment, and technology. And I was assistant to one of the members of the board group of directors, Mr. Karl Maute. And if he can hear this, I would like to say hello and thanks for everything you taught me. And our office was responsible for the group administration and all technical operations within the group, which was basically the end-to-end workflow from production to post-production to content encryption to playout center to receivers. And it was a large group with about 10,000 people working there. And in our technical division, there were about 2,500 people directly working within the group. And this is how I came into the field of media and technology. And then something happened. Then came 9/11 came, and the dot-com bubble bursted. And our group came into trouble and had to file for insolvency in 2002. And after this insolvency of the group, I started to work for the insolvency lawyer of this group and his team for the following next 5 years. And we did the restructuring of companies, and I supported the sales processes of all these assets within the group. And then at the end of 2006, I took the chance to make a management buyout of some of the leftovers, which was basically the technical operations around the huge film archive. And this film archive carried about 2 million unique physical media assets, all unique, hundreds of media types and formats. And our small company, I think we had about 20 people, we were specialized in the physical archiving and remastering and logistics of film and video and audio material. And we had the know-how and all these old machines to digitally remaster historical film tape and audio material, mainly movies and series. And some of them originated from the 1920s of the last century until the 90s of the last century. So this was really a very special field. And our small, the content master itself, it was stored on a special tape material called HDCAM SR. And this special tape material was able to store these huge amounts of data. I mean, we are in the year 2007 or 8 now. And the digitizing of film with 25 frames per image was huge amounts of data. And these tapes were made to store this. And And the whole logistic went with these tapes. And then came another incident which changed everything, and this was the Fukushima Incident in 2011. The tsunami over Japan destroyed all the factories over there which manufactured these tapes. And from one day to the other, there was no tape supply anymore worldwide. And the whole broadcast industry had to change the workflow to file-based workflows. And this radical change caused trouble in our company, as we were heavily invested in the tape-based and machines. And so it was time for me to make another change. I founded a family and bought an apartment in Berlin and moved to Berlin end of 2013. And I had some money on the bank, and I decided to take a break after all this and think. And I found out that I wanted to make something more future-oriented. I wanted to go somewhere where the sun is shining, seek a prosperous business perspective in a growing new market. And I knew this new market had to be somewhere in the online business. And then in 2014, during my break, I bought an Oculus DK2, the early VR headset development kit. And this immersive media experience had blown me away. I was so impressed by the VR 360 immersive experience that I decided to go into this direction. And I listened to all the talks of John Carmack, and I tried to learn and understand. And from Carmack, I've learned that VR in the new media will be more about 3D than 360. And so I started to dive into 3D, and I did some research online. And in 2015 then, after the 1 year break, I founded my digital production studio, and I named it Mesh Images. So the initial concept for Mesh Images was to be a digital production studio for VR content, because after my experience with the DK2, I was assuming that the market for VR content would go through the roof. And at first, I tried to sell productions to German TV stations, but this was difficult without a proven record and without reputation or without any of your own VR content in your hands. And well, this is how I came to Metaport. This is how, I identified it. And I saw that Metaport had all the assets and abilities that I was looking for. Metaport is a capturing system for 360 images combined with a perfect 3D replica of the space. And all assets are captured in one process and in one system. So it was just perfect for me. And I decided to take the risk and buy a Metaport camera to produce some VR content. So this was my original intention. And yeah, normally it's better to sell first and then go into the investment, but this time I decided to take the risk. And in September 2015, I ordered my Metaport Pro 1. And at that time, I was probably, one of the first Metaport users in Germany. And then I started to produce some content with the Metaport. And what I did was I extracted the assets, the 4K panels, and also the OBJ. And I created some VR content with these assets. And I showed this VR content to potential clients in the VR headset. And these productions were basically just 360 panorama slideshows, and then one experience you could walk through in Metaport OBJ, which we created with Unity. It was all very simple. But people who watched this weren't so interested in the VR experience, but they were very interested in the Metaport showcase itself, and especially on mobile phones. This is what the Metaport showcase on mobile phones was the breakthrough. People said, this is the right thing that we need. And so I focused more on Metaport itself and decided to make Metaport tours. And I contacted first clients of mine, which were all in Munich. I was already living in Berlin, as I'm now, but my first contacts were in Munich. And this is how I came into Metaport. And
that is awesome. Yeah. Well, hopefully we hope, history doesn't keep repeating itself or some existential, catastrophe knocks Matterport out and we have to switch careers again. But
I hope not. No. I'm really very, very confident that Metaport is on a very good track now. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Well, thank you so much for sharing that background. That's such an awesome story about how you came to be where you're at now. And with that first client that you said is from Munich, what kind of client were they? Were they in the real estate? What type of space was your
completely different. This was the Messe München. This is the trade show location in Munich. And in 2016, I had my first large Metaport project there. And this was the convention center for Messe München, the ICM. And in 2016, it was really big. It had 25,000 square meters, which is about 250,000 square feet, I think. And with a foyer space of 8,000 square meters, 80,000 square feet. And we captured the whole space with our Pro 2 camera, but without fast scanning. So one scan took us 1 minute. And the whole job took us 2 weeks of continuous scanning, sometimes 14 hours a day. But it turned out to be a very, very cool project. Yeah. And
that is a big effort to do that. I can't imagine.
Yeah, my feet hurt. Actually, it was really hard. It was a tough job. And one of the special things about this job is that one of the spaces was later picked by Metaport for the Metaport demo material. This was for the Metapack demo material. This was the Metapack that everybody could download. And then in the second step, the Messe München asked me how much it would be to capture the whole exhibition area, which measured more than 2 million square feet or 200,000 square meters. Well, and I showed them my calculation, and they decided not to do it. It was really expensive. I mean, you couldn't afford it. But Messe München continued the cooperation with me, but more in the 3D space. We did modeling, rendering, 360 capturing, and so on. And I diversified my business a little bit into the 3D and 360 space. But I also continued Matterporting, and in the meantime, I also acquired some customers here in Berlin. Most of them were property agents, almost all of them for residential, which was the easy case. And these were some of the big players here in Germany. Engel and Völkers, maybe also known over at your location in the United States, and German heroes like Dollar and Company and so on. And this went good until Metaport started to talk and sell directly to my customers or to these large groups as they do today. And this was then also the time when Metaport changed the business model and raised prices. And I think this was in 2019. And I lost some of my loyalty and trust in Metaport these days, I must confess. And then came the pandemic. And in the last 2 years, I was focusing more on 3D and on self-hosted experience, mainly made with 3D Vista. And I decided to dive more into e-commerce with Shopify. And I dived into all the digital marketing processes that I've learned with Shopify. Shopify is a fantastic system. It's really impressive. And I've learned a lot from that. And in the last 2 years, I've also learned a lot about communication tools, about analytics, about photogrammetry, and also augmented reality. And I work with a couple of freelancers, and we built this know-how. And we are now integrating this also into our Metaport showcases. And there's another thing that I've learned in the last 2 years during the pandemic. I've learned to consequently think from the user and from the customer perspective. I've learned to start from why. Why should anybody buy my virtual tour? And this helps a lot. And this thinking is how I came back to Metaport, because Metaport does the same thing. And now I'm really bullish about Metaport. I've joined the RCE network in the United States, the Reality Capture Experts Network, and I'm now making a bet again on Metaport. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's way cool. So with mesh images, what would you say, how is your business kind of split up right now? Like your time, is it spent, are you guys doing a lot of Matterport stuff now, or how does kind of your current personal time and business time with Mesh Images split between kind of these different categories of work that y'all do?
Yeah, the German market is a little bit different. Because Metaport is not so easy to sell over here because it's hosted in the United States, and in the EU we have this, in the European Union we have this privacy and data restrictions, and many of the corporate clients are not allowed to use Metaport. So this is where you need self-hosted solutions because they have restrictions. They cannot host their data in the USA, and thus I cannot scan a BMW factory space, for example, because there is restrictions that they cannot host the data in the USA. So this is kind of difficult, but I think Metaport.
Have you? Sorry to cut you off. Have you spoken with Matterport about that issue? Like, what have they? I
think they know it themselves, but now they are listed on the stock market, and I think they will also change. And there's talks between the European Union and the United States about how to find a way to get along with this, but. I think we are waiting for 5 years now that these discussions come to a result, and it takes an awful lot of time. And these privacy restrictions and hosting restrictions and data protection and so on. This is a bit difficult in Europe and especially in Germany.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think you can use Metaport in many use cases. I think in the real estate, in construction, AEC is a huge market, and the other huge market that's quite ahead in front of us is retail. I'm convinced that retail will jump on the Metaport train because Metaport enables them to open 24/7 their space. This is the showroom, the flagship store, and you can open it 24/7 with a Metaport tour. And this is something that store owners will do. I think. I think retail will be coming.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think one of the benefits of retail is with AR, you can like preview an object in your space, which has a ton of value. Sometimes those AR models aren't the most high quality or the coloring's a little off. But I think what's cool about like a virtual showroom is it kind of helps provide more context of a product, and like what that product, like what size it is compared to other objects in a space, what it looks like from all the way around. And then also just kind of provides the flat e-commerce website is not really a replication of a retail experience. And so being able to actually have retail experiences online in a way that's kind of immersive and feels like you're going to a store, I think, as Matterport continues to improve, as us at Openhaus continue to build better e-commerce solutions, and then just as VR and these 3D experiences become more acceptable or kind of expected, I think you're right. I think we'll see retail really get the point, because I think up to this point there's just been a lot of these different things that have held stores back from wanting to really embrace Matterport.
Yeah, I think so too. The always the same grid in online stores. I think this doesn't. This is currently selling, but this is not a product experience. And you can add more information in the 360 space. You can add a video and explain things and push people to the buying decisions much better than in an online store layout. I think this is one of the chances that we have with immersive experiences in retail to drive customer interest and to tell them things and to teach them about the product to make them buy it in the end.
Yeah, definitely. So we talked about different things that have you excited about Matterport. Again, one of the things that has been big news in the Matterport and 3D space is obviously the announcement of the Matterport Pro 3 camera. What's kind of your just initial reaction? Are you getting a Pro 3 camera? What are you excited about? What are you disappointed in? Like, what's your initial reaction to the Pro 3 Matterport camera?
Well, the Pro 3 is a completely new camera, and I think you need to buy one to stay in the business. You cannot compete without a Pro 3. I mean, the Pro 3 comes with outdoor capture. It comes with the LiDAR for high ceilings, for much, much bigger spaces. And it has this wonderful new optic 1-inch sensor and powerful single lens, which will also eliminate some problems of the old Pro 2 with these carved out image effects. And yeah, I think this, and it has the exchangeable batteries as well. So in theory, you can let your camera roll 24/7 without charging it again. Yeah? I think these are all advantages, and you cannot compete without having a Pro 3. But the even bigger announcement for me this week was the release of the new Metaport Cloud. And they changed something. They changed from this 50K polygon limitation from the download of a space to the streaming of a space. And now you can create spaces of almost unlimited size, as they write. And so this is, I think, this is the step into the metaverse, and this is why you will need a Metaport Pro 3 and to build these huge experiences. I mean, now with the Metaport Pro 3, we can scan an IKEA. This was not possible with the Pro 2, or with the limitations of the 50K polygon mesh. It was impossible. You had so many objects in there. You couldn't scan an IKEA with about 200,000 or 250,000 square feet in one model. But now it will be possible, and this will change a lot of things. So, and this will open new possibilities for Matterport and also for Openhaus.
Yeah, I agree. With just both of those things combined, I just think that just your perception of what's possible to capture really is just totally changed. I mean, you can capture, like city blocks. I think some of the spaces they showed was like basically like a city block, or like a large building with multiple floors, and the external entire block area outside. And I just think, I think you're right. Our perception of like what we can create, our some of our business to business clients that we're working with have these like large properties that before we were thinking, okay, yeah, we'll just like make separate tours of all these different spaces on their property. But now it like really becomes possible, one, just from like a logistical scanning perspective, that you can actually scan that place in a consistent and quick enough way, but then also have the ability to even load and stream and view that space. It's really exciting for sure.
Yeah,
I think too that the other point, I think for someone that's just kind of doing, because I think a lot of the negative feedback I've heard about the Pro 3 is that basically a lot of Matterport service providers, they are doing a lot of just residential scanning. So most of their business is just scanning for like real estate listings. But to me, if I were in their shoes, like I think that the scanning time between like new iPhone and new iPhone chips, first of all, plus this new Pro 3 camera, I think the time to even scan a residential space should be cut down significantly as well. That anyways, we're excited about it for all different types of reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Pro 3 can be a breakthrough, and the pricing is okay. I mean, it's $6,000. You need some more packs, or 6,500 or so. I think 6,000 with the extra batteries. Yeah, and I think it's if you buy it, you will have this new Metaport moment, or you have this Metaport moment again, you will be invited to scan something just to show this camera and how it works and how the dollhouse looks and what you can do with it, and to compare the image quality with a new 1-inch sensor lens, which is much better. And for us in retail, I want to focus on retail. We will have these night scans when it's really dark, and sometimes also outside and inside, and thinking of windows, shopping windows, etc. And this will be great with a new camera.
Yeah, definitely. Have you ordered yours yet?
Not yet.
Same here. We did order ours. It's funny you say that, because when the announcement came out, we were like, oh, let's order this right now. And then we kind of got distracted. And then like 3 days later, we were like, wait, we got to order this, because obviously, I mean, they may have limited inventory, so we actually finally did order ours. But it's funny you say you haven't, because we kind of spaced ordering ours as well.
Yeah. I need one. So probably this weekend I will also order it.
Yeah, definitely. So, well, Florian, we're definitely going to have to do another call soon. We got through like half of what we planned on, but we'll definitely do another call soon. I'd love to hear we talked a lot about just Matterport in general, obviously with Openhaus and other SDK partners. We're building things on top of Matterport, and I'd love to talk again, in the next few weeks about your perspective on SDK partners and like what that means for the future of Matterport. So we'll have to save that for another time. I could talk to you all day. I'm sure we're going to have more conversations.
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks, Carson. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, you bet. Again, thank you, Florian from Mesh Images. You can learn more about Mesh Images at meshimages.com. Is that correct?
Correct.
Awesome. And anyways, that concludes our chat for today, and we will see y'all next time.